Hello and welcome to Game Changer Live. We were created to inspire with topics around coaching, positivity, mindset, and more. We bring on live guests the second and fourth Wednesday of each month, and our motto for this channel is Together We Inspire. So let's get inspired today. I have a guest here joining me. His name is Timothy Mabry. Timothy is a seasoned speaker and a corporate leadership trainer with a unique blend of real world experience and actionable insights. He has over a decade in the first responder world as in the fire service, culminating in his role as a lieutenant, which means that he knows what it takes to take leadership and go the next level and lead under pressure and drive that organizational excellence through whatever is happening. His Lead Through Fire program goes beyond superficial fixes and delves deep into the root causes of ineffective leadership to offer sustainable solutions that reduce turnover and elevate performance. Tim, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Daniel, for having me here on your Game Changers live show. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome. And so tell us about your business. Tell us about what you're here to talk about.
So I'm here to spread a message that you're never alone. No matter where you are at in your life and your business, there's always a way out of your current situation and circumstances. So I created Lead Through Fire because I started to notice a trend in my own journey during the fire service that leadership is a very unique and dynamic aspect that not many people really know how to do it. And they're not really taught how the journey is.
Yeah. They don't teach leaders really to lead. They look for people who are really good at what they do and then they promote them to leadership, but they don't prepare them for that role. It's usually very different than whatever they were doing before. Well, tell us about who's listening in the audience that really should pay attention. Who's going to benefit the most from what you're going to talk about with us today?
Well, anyone can truly benefit from what I'm having to say, but my ideal and target audience are the CEOs, the entrepreneurs, the C-suite level executives, the veterans and first responders who have been through the challenges of leadership. See, when you work your way up the ranks, you're not taught and told that there's more responsibility that's on you. You're like, you know what? I like the job title. I want the money, the title, but you're not certain of what does that look like now that you're not only leading yourself, but other people. So those individuals that I listed, they're the ones who are listening. They're the ones that have the greatest impact to help reshape their mindset, to change their lives and bring back a better dynamic, just like I did through my journey of being a firefighter, working my way up the ranks, and now being an entrepreneur.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure that being a firefighter specifically has had an impact that helped influence your approach to leadership. Um, can you tell us a little bit about that?
Oh, yeah, most definitely. Being in the fire service, you see a lot of different types of leaders. What I mean by that is every time you get a fire call, let's say you get a house fire, grass fire, you're going out to the scene. The first person in charge of that scene is what they call the incident commander. That's like the CEO or the high level executive for a company. They're the first ones there. And if that person doesn't know what to do, everything falls apart. I remember specifically one fire scene that we had. It was a newer fire officer, and we showed up to a single story residential house that was modestly involved, which means we could have made a stop. This gentleman didn't really know what to do. He sat there, contemplated, and decided to play it safe. But by doing so, he didn't let anybody else know what was going on. He created a plan in his head, but he didn't effectively communicate that to everybody else. So other units started to get on scene, and it just ended up being a train wreck because now you had people doing their own thing.
Yeah.
The same goes for a business and in your own personal life. If you don't take charge and you don't know how to, it's going to fall apart. And that's why it takes a different type of leader to not only know what to do, but how to overcome and to know when, you know what, this isn't working, let's pivot or let's get somebody else.
Yeah, that's a great analogy because it also speaks to the transparency that leaders have to share the plan with other people so that they can follow through. Like that's part of being a leader, but we don't teach that to leaders, so that makes sense. What about self-awareness? How does that play into effective transformative leadership?
So self awareness is you have to be able to understand what's going on inside your mind, body, soul, and spirit. And by being able to be comfortable with what you're going through, you're able to start seeing other people's situations and get that different perspective. I'm gonna give an analogy on this. So a few years ago, I was going through a pretty bad crisis where I wasn't in the right state of mind. I was struggling. I was really struggling, and I had to cry out for help. Well, my cry out for help didn't get answered. I asked why later on. Why didn't I get help? Like what happened in that moment? And the response from my battalion chief was, I didn't know how to help you because I couldn't help myself. I was not mentally right. So by being self-aware, you know how you tick, how you present to others, and how you interact during stressful situations and in times of good. So you have to know how you personally tick and are okay with it so that you can also look at somebody else's. But you have to get
Right.
yourself right first before you can move on to somebody else.
Yeah, the biblical analogy is to worry about the splinter in your own eye before you worry about the sliver in your brother's eye, right? So taking
Yes.
or the airline methodology of putting the mask on yourself first before you put the mask on someone else.
Yeah, that's definitely true. Because
Yeah.
if you don't take care of yourself first, how am I going to help you? That's like when you go into a house fire, when you go into a business as the boss, you have to be able to put your own mask on. You have to have your own training and knowledge so that you can then go through and pull that out. So that's
Yeah.
also why I have it as lead through fire, is because I literally teach people how to put their own mask on mentally first so that then they can pull out other people and say, hey, here's how to put your mask on and start that chain effect. So this way we
Yeah.
all are able to pull out and succeed together.
Yeah, that's really awesome. And the thing I love about self-awareness is that it maps really well to emotional intelligence, which is also another important thing for leadership. I'm wondering if you could expand on that a little bit about how emotional intelligence also contributes to effective transformative leadership.
Definitely. So emotional intelligence is saying I know what's going on emotionally, and I know how to process it. And then whenever somebody else has a cry for help or they're struggling, you're able to recognize it a little bit better, and not just recognize it, but move through with it. An example is we had a call one day where we picked this lady up off the floor and we ended up putting her in a bed. Unfortunately, she didn't. Something happened and she didn't make it. And we ended up having a debrief later on at the fire station. And I realized I was sitting there, I was looking at the faces of my firefighters and one of the other fire officers. And I noticed that everybody had a face that something was going on. They didn't know how to say it and how to start the conversation. And I was like, you know what? I understand my emotions with this. And there was quite a few like loss, turmoil, like what's happening? Why did this happen? So I started the conversation. I showed them that I was vulnerable and that it was okay to open up and accept that. That's one big thing as a leader. You have to be self aware and emotionally aware and conscious so that you can watch and see the cues of other people. Something may
Yeah.
not bother you, but if you're emotionally intelligent and aware, you can help other people pull that out before it becomes a big problem.
Yeah.
And that's what's needed.
Yeah, it that sounds a lot like the Daniel Goleman model for emotional intelligence, where your self-awareness leads to self-control as well as relational awareness of how other people are dealing, which then leads you to help them control their emotions, relational control. And I love that model. I taught that model as well when I was a trainer. So, what what about strategies that you go into businesses? When you go into a business, what kind of strategies do you help leaders develop that mental toughness and resilience that I'm sure that you helped your firefighters develop?
So the first thing we have to do is we establish that you have to be self-aware. You have to be emotionally intelligent and know your true mission and drive. That's the basis. So what I do is I help companies understand the boss and the how they actually interact with other people. The popular method is to use the DISC method to determine what exactly makes you tick, how you interact with other people, and then with the company. Because if you don't know how to navigate that right, it can cause some problems. So the first step is to identify how you work with others and what's happening in the company. See, I tailor my instructions on what I see. So I look for companies who have a high turnover issue. Their sales are slumping and they're just starting on a big downcline. So I start with that. I start to figure out, why are people leaving? Is this a money problem? Is this a management problem? Is this benefits or is schedule? So I try to figure out exactly what the problem is so you can plug that leak. And I'm not going to say I'm an expert in everything. I am not. So that's why I'm building it. I have a team together of different individuals who can come in and say, hey, you know what? You might have a sales team problem and it's about sales specifically. That's not my area of expertise, but I'm going to bring that person in as part of my fee so that we can build and plug that leak. So it
Yeah.
depends on what you're really needing as an organization, and then find the right people who can also help with that mission.
That kind of lends itself to the idea that it's not one size fits all because there's lots of different problems, and having toxic leadership or a leadership issue where your leaders aren't prepared to lead can definitely be one of those issues that sounds like you're prepared to solve, but that you also have a team that can help with those other issues when they come up. Well, how so it sounds like turnover is one of those key experiences that really indicates that there might be a leadership issue. Um, what do you do in the case of high turnover? How do you influence those organizations with leadership development?
So with the ones who have a leadership problem with high turnover, so the reason I selected high turnover is because that's a measurable index, like a good KPI of what people can see. You may not be able to tell what's going on in someone internally, like an organization from the outside. You're really not sure what's fully happening until you dive in. So turnover is that key point. And once you start figuring out why people are leaving, so what I do is I actually call the top 10 people who have left recently from a company. I'm like, why did you leave? Send out surveys to that company, like, all right, what's the culture like? Are you love your job? How's your management? And then actually, when I get to the company, I will actually talk to the employees to see is this survey results true, or is this something that the management has doctored? Because if it's something management has doctored, I know 100% that's a leadership problem. That's a cultural issue that's causing high turnover, causing massive loss of revenue. That's how to plug that leak. Especially right now, we're in a downturn. I was talking to several billionaires in the past couple of weeks, and they're all saying we are entering into a downturn. Right now is the time for your companies to start taking account of what is happening in our organization. Are we losing people at an enormous rate? Are we are our people productive? And if no, bring me in, bring a consultant, someone who can help you with that. Because the average employee only truly works 4 out of 8 hours in a workday. That's huge. So if you're looking at having to cut people this coming year, which I pray to God nobody does, but if you are looking at that route, before you cut anybody, call me. Let's do a consultation. Let me see how I can help you, because nobody wants to let someone go, especially in a downturn.
What other kind of future trends do you foresee coming up for businesses in the near future?
There's definitely a need to start consolidating. Right now, a lot in the past, we've had a lot of good, profitable years, but right now, it's starting to take a good hold of what are we about to do? How are we going to weather this storm? Unfortunately, that's what it's looking like. But a big thing for that, it's like I was saying, is you start focusing on how you can plug these leaks. Be proactive instead of reactive. If right now the big business owners and the big dogs are saying, hey, there's something coming. We don't know when, we don't know what, but the market is showing a trend of things are going to start happening. So you got to start pulling back and planning that. Start putting a rainy day fund. Find different ways of investing your funds so that you can then save your employees. Also, employees in Gen Z, they don't want to work for a boss who, well, actually, they don't want to work for a boss. They want to work for a leader. See, the difference is a boss is somebody who has the title. We talked about that before. A leader is someone who can lead you through the fire, who can inspire you, who makes you want to get up in the morning and say, yes, I can come to work. I get to do this, not I have to.
Yeah.
And to start transitioning your team to be true leaders. That's what the marketplace is saying. That is what Gen Z is happening. That is what is occurring. So business owners, you CEOs and entrepreneurs, start looking into that right now before it's too late.
Yeah, and we're really talking about the engagement of those workers. I've heard statistics that up to 80% of employee turnover is a result of engagement or the lack of engagement of employees. And engaged employees are 30% more productive than disengaged employees. And I also heard some key words that kind of help people define that level of engagement of engaged employees versus actively engaged employees, and disengaged employees versus actively disengaged employees. Employees who spend their time actively trying to disengage from work because it's so toxic, or because there's something wrong, or maybe because they are indeed a bad employee. But if you're not addressing that leadership issue, then you're just creating a problem for your bottom line, right? So that's some I guess ammunition for your fire, if you will.
It definitely is.
So
And
yeah,
a term for that is also called quiet quitting. That's a very popular
yeah,
buzzword right now.
yeah. Quiet quitting is yeah, absolutely. There's a lot out there about quiet quitting as well, and definitely employee engagement is the opposite of that quiet quitting. Well, Timothy, if you were going to sum all of your presentation to us today into just a couple sound bites, what would that sound like?
The first thing is no matter where you're at in your life and your business, it's never too late to turn it around. And you can always do that. But it takes a first step of realizing there's a problem and that you want change. So if that's in your organization, that's taking a hard look at yourself inside and outside to start becoming a true leader and worth following, and not just a boss. See, you can do it, you can overcome, and you can teach other people to do so. And if you really want to rise to overcome to where you were that leader worth following, hit me up. Go to timothymabry.com, my speaker page, lead-fire.com, and you can bring me into your company and we'll do this together. You are not alone. Let's rise, let's overcome, and let's beat this recession and let's beat business.
Nice. I love that. Thank you so much, Tim. I'm tossing into chat a link to your website so that people can see leadfire.com. And I'll make sure that that goes in the comments for the video after it goes live. I want to thank you so much for being here, part of this channel, being our guest today. And to the audience, I want to thank you as well for showing up and for watching. We couldn't do this, we wouldn't do this without you. And if you wanted to give back to the community, just a quick action that you can take is to make sure you're logged into YouTube and like this video, subscribe for more content, and tune in next week, because we go live every week on Wednesdays at 3:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. I'll see you next week at 3:30 Wednesday, that's Pacific Standard Time. And until then, stay inspired. Thank you.